Hello. My name is George Lawton. I'm a journalist for VentureBeat, and I'm here today with Ali Parisi, co-founder and CEO of Babylon Health, which does some groovy medical experience tech for consumers, connecting the dots between new medical technology and better health care. We've got Sabrina Maniscalco, who is co-founder and CEO of Algorithmiq, which is developing quantum computing technology for new medical breakthroughs. And we have Anna Maiques, who's developing some neuroelectric technology to help treat epilepsy and depression. So, just for starters, tell us a little bit about what are you doing in this field of deep tech, and what are some of the experiences you've been having with that? Ali?
We are spending a lot of time trying to figure out how do you scalably, accessibly, affordably deliver healthcare to people. And if you think about the costs in healthcare, they fundamentally sit in two brackets. 2/3 of all our costs goes into salaries. So a lot is about automation. If you can't automate what human beings do all the time, there is just not enough maths that says there is enough human beings out there, clinicians, nurses, who can deliver the services that we're going to need. So part of deep tech, or AI, is basically another word for automation, if you want. The other side is people forget 70% of all costs on healthcare are predictable and therefore preventable crises and emergencies. So if we can collect, if instead of waiting for people to get sick and then deal with their crises and emergencies, we can collect data from them in real time, analyze that data in real time, and be able to intervene early, surely that's an easier way or a better way of doing this. So deep tech or technology can sound like this big thing, but at the end of the day, it needs to be for a purpose, and the purpose cannot be anything else but to make healthcare accessible, affordable for everybody, so that use of technology has to be either for accessibility or affordability. And in our case, it's usually for both.
Thank you. Sabrina?
Yes, at Algorithmiq, we are developing quantum software for current quantum computers with applications to life sciences, specifically drug development and discovery. As you probably know, we are in the middle of a quantum revolution, and we already have prototypes of computers that are able to deliver things and calculations that conventional computers cannot obtain. And in particular, because drug development and discovery is definitely facing an R&D challenge, we know that we should do better. We know that 50% of drugs currently fail 90% of drugs fail to cure properly 50% of the population, and this is due to an oversimplification of the cell biology, and mostly it is due to the fact that we are not able to predict with sufficient accuracy how small molecules and drugs bind to proteins. This is exactly what quantum computers can do very efficiently from first principles, and they are going to revolutionize really our society, and in particular healthcare and life sciences. And this is what we are currently doing.
Thank you. Anna, tell us how you're using neuroelectrics to improve mental health.
So thank you. So now that you're listening to me, there are almost 100 billion neurons in your brain. So think about deep tech. It's the most sophisticated, most complex, most difficult part of our body and what really defines us as humans. So in Neuroelectrics, we've been obsessed in the last 10 years to really try to decode how the brain works. So the brain is electrical and also it's chemistry, right? So these electrodes that I'm wearing, they can pick up my electrical signals of my brain, but we are very fascinated because I can inject currents into the brain. So I can stimulate the brain with electricity, and it's not painful. And with that, we think we can modulate the brain and maybe help patients, for example, with epilepsy. We have shown that we can reduce seizures in children that don't respond to medication. Depression, to me, the biggest pandemic yet to come. and maybe down the line Alzheimer's. So just open your mind to new modalities. I think that now is the time for the new kids on the block to deal with the brain. Drugs had a lot of effort and money. I think we need now digital solutions, psychedelics, electrical stimulation, whatever it takes to help millions of patients that are suffering today.
Are we going to be walking around with these caps?
I mean, it's not bad, right?
Like a new fashion, color coordinated?
We can put like WebSummit logos, make it like animal print, whatever. No, jokes aside, I think that this is to be used home. It's wireless, it's portable. So the idea is that patients will be prescribed this therapy at home, and we can stimulate brains, collect their brain signals, and really personalize in ways it hasn't been possible before.
So it's like you provide this interactive experience at home without having to go back to the hospital for treatments.
Exactly. I mean, electrical stimulation like mine requires repetition. It's very low current. So, neurons that fire together wire together. The brain has plasticity. So we need to electrically stimulate your brain day after day after day until it really kind of rewires. So that's why going home is not only for the comfort, it's because we need repetition as a technology.
So Sabrina, like quantum computing, that's been this sort of work in progress for a while. And on the one hand, you have people doing the algorithms that are going to run on these. And then you have these incremental breakthroughs from the noisy kind of intermediate scale quantum to the, whatever the next kind of high performance thing is. What are you doing kind of in this interim period between when maybe there's some things that sort of work good today, like quantum annealing, and down the road when we have this like scalable, fault tolerant sort of quantum computers?
Yes, that's a very good point. Well, we know nowadays that in order to reach scalable fault-tolerant quantum computers, we will probably have to wait 10 to 15 years. So along the journey, we do have already noisy computers that, however, can be used provided that one knows how to mitigate noise, how to cancel the noise, and how to extract the relevant data from the computers. And this is exactly what Algorithmiq is doing. And we have discovered a way of doing it that nobody else, we have patented it, so it's a proprietary method that allows to use existing quantum computers now to perform quantum chemistry simulation and simulations that are useful for drug development and discovery. So this is a groundbreaking change, really, in the field, just because it is not simple to really understand and extract information from quantum computers and use it in a way that can have already now industrial applications. So we are very excited, and we think that this will be the beginning of a new era for health and medicine.
Thank you. So Ali, what are the low-hanging fruit in applying deep tech, at an individual level? Like you were sort of alluding to it, that you don't need this, cutting-edge kind of breakthrough. We can just get better at identifying problems sooner, improving the experience, reducing the workload on care workers so they can focus where they can make the most difference. Like what are some of the practical ways that you're seeing this today?
I think, George, the most practical thing we can do in healthcare is, look, let me actually start this way, George. This thing you and I call healthcare is not healthcare. It's sick care. When was the last time you went to see a doctor when you were healthy? You don't. You go when you're sick. That's like, I used to drive my car until it broke down. Then I took it to a mechanic and a garage that fixed it, usually at a high price, because it was broken. Today we buried so many sensors in my car that I am warned when something's going wrong. I can take it to not a repair shop but a service station that can fix it. Why don't we now do that almost with every asset we have? All our factories are run that way, these lights are changed that way. Why don't we do that to the most important asset we have, our body? We deal with our body in a way that we used to deal with it almost 200 years ago. With all the technology we have today, the technology that Sabrina is talking about is game-changing. But until that comes, we have a lot of technology. My watch knows more about me than my doctor ever will. And yet nobody's looking at the data that comes out of my watch. It's absurd, right? So I think that the single most important thing we can do is to create a healthcare system and a healthcare ecosystem. And that means instead of waiting for people to get sick, is one, figure out how we can collect data on people all the time in real time, 24/7, through our watches, phones, actions, how we sleep. Two, how do we stream that data in real time and securely? Three, how do we analyze it in real time to be able to intervene early? We do that single thing. Whoever figures this out would create one of the most valuable companies in the world because they're working towards a transition from a $10 trillion wasteful sick care system into a healthcare system. So, and by the way, there is not a single technology you need that has not been invented or is not there already. Almost all of it is here. It can be done overnight. I remember when we started, George, and I finish with that, people used to say, talking to a doctor over a mobile phone, impossible, it'll never come. The moment the necessity of COVID came, we were all talking to our doctors on a mobile phone, overnight. Almost everything I just described can be done almost overnight. It's not done, not because it's not possible or the technology is not there. It's not done because we're just not doing it.
Well, what can technology do in the near term to take, like there's this torrent of data. You've got the smartwatches, you've got the various, your phone's always collecting information about you. And then, but it's disconnected from the healthcare experience. So we're getting all this information, and then we're getting all this noise from like Google News, from, you look at the news and if you have this symptom, this might be a sign of cancer, bowel disease, this disease, that disease. How do we get to the point where we can contextualize it and we can pay attention to the right things without getting freaked out about the latest Google News search?
Look, the reality is that we're going to get false positives and so on and so forth. There is no question that this is not going to be a straightforward road, and we're not going to make mistakes, and things are not going to go wrong. And a lot of people say, but because it's healthcare, we cannot take any risks. The reality is we're taking a risk every day by not doing the right system. How many people, George, do you know, how many do you know, Sabrina, Anna, that died unnecessarily because their cancer was diagnosed too late? Almost no one, or a very tiny minority of people, should die of cancer if we can detect it at stage 1. By the time we detect it, by the time a signal comes, it's usually stage 4 and often too late. Most cancers at the stage 1 are detectable and curable, and we are not doing it. So I think that we need to balance the risk of the disaster we got right now that we call healthcare. $10 trillion serving a tiny minority of humanity. Vast majority of humanity, by the way, have no access to healthcare. 5 billion people cannot even dream of surgery, right? That's the reality of the world we're in. There is no solution under the current care system that will fix this. So we need to kind of think about how do we transform the system in the same way that we did it in so many other areas, right? There is no solution that will make our environment safe if we all drive petrol guzzling cars, and it took a group of people to change that to electric cars. And the future of cars, whether it's electric or hydrogen, it certainly is not petrol guzzling. Why couldn't this group, these people in here, change the future of healthcare from sick care to be what it should be?
Thank you. So Anna, like TCDS, that's been around for a while, and various kind of brain biofeedback tools have been around for ages. But you're actually discovering ways to treat diseases in a repeatable way, like you mentioned, epilepsy and depression. What's involved in exploring like the whole landscape of, do you use this frequency and this electrode placement to create a meaningful difference in a way that's going to help the most people?
Yeah, I think that along the lines of Ali, I think that, you know, it's a Moore-Laws kind of situation. The tools we have about what we know about the brain, but the computational tools we have, the miniaturization of technology, the wireless capacity to read brains hasn't been seen before. So I think that we are in a moment in which technology is allowing us to deal with the brain in ways we couldn't imagine. For example, we are doing neurotwins. We are building digital copies of your brain in the cloud. So as Ali said, instead of going into a fighter or a flight, pilots go in simulators. Can we simulate the brain before we give you a drug, before we give you stimulation, so we understand how your brain may respond? I feel like it's not only about prevention, which I think is another dimension. You go to the psychiatrist, they give you a pill and say, come back 3 months, see if it works. Oh, shoot, what kind of science is that? It's like a black box, I don't have a clue. If we can use all the technologies we have today to really try to understand how the brain is going to respond to a drug or anything, I think we are going to make a giant leap. Because I think that we really need to personalize and we really need to prevent. Maybe, you know, one day you'll go and instead of doing like a blood test, you'll have a brain scan, and then we'll see how your brain health is kind of fading before you even have any amyloid plaque on Alzheimer's, right? So I agree that technology is allowing this, but it's true that the healthcare systems are not ready for this. They still incentivize us to do big MRI things, do big surgeries, open scalps, make a lot of money with implanted. And you know, it's a big paradigm. I feel like a David versus Goliath kind of situation when you try to push into the healthcare system more non-invasive wearables. So, you know, we just lack, because people like Ali and Sabrina and I, we really have to break into the systems to really change. But as Uber and many other companies, it just takes one CEO, one company, one team to change the landscape. So I'm still very optimistic.
Thank you. So Sabrina, what do you think are going to be some of the next big milestones of bringing quantum technology into the medical arena?
Yes. The very first milestone will be to start from quantum chemistry. So the first things that we will be doing is to combine the state-of-the-art conventional software to describe binding of small molecules to proteins in a way that it's enhanced by quantum computers. Quantum computers are weird for people. I mean, many of us, many of the people in the public for sure do not know how they work. And sometimes it can be strange to talk about something that you never experience in your daily life, just because the physics behind, the laws behind quantum computers are laws that are very mysterious, very different. However, the important aspect that for us needs to be demonstrated and needs to be brought to everyone is the fact that molecules are quantum systems. And because of these, quantum computers have exactly the same properties that allow any quantum computer to simulate quantum molecules. So they are very different with respect to conventional computers. There are limitations that are at the moment unbreakable. So it's not just the question of doing something faster or more accurate. It's the question of doing something that cannot be done otherwise. So simulating at the level or creating really first principle models of how drugs in realistic conditions work within our body is not something that will ever be possible with conventional computers. So imagine the roads and the possibilities that are open now that we have these new technologies. It's just exciting, and obviously it's not a replacement of whatever we have already, but it's a way of complementing them and enhancing everything which already exists beyond the limit of what is possible.
Thank you. Ali, what's one milestone you see coming up in bringing healthcare to the masses, cost-effective healthcare, not just sick care, to the masses?
I think, George, we are here talking about deep tech, and I think quantum computing will make a huge difference, because when it comes, I bet the very first task will be to solve for general intelligence. So the general artificial intelligence. So I think that the synthesis between quantum computing and general artificial intelligence whichever comes first will solve the problems of the second. But put that aside, I think the next half a century or this century is going to be about the changes we will make in genetics, in biology. I think what is happening in biology right now, it's insane. Just think about it. We've created a worm that can live 10 years longer, 10 times longer. We brought back dead cells from a pig. We created a tomato that does not age. Like, what we are doing in biology is something fundamentally game-changing. I think we are at the very first time in the history of humanity, of Homo sapiens, we are on the verge of being able to design the new generation of sapiens. And I think that has unbelievable opportunities in front of it, as well as unbelievable risks. And that to me will be the defining thing in healthcare, not technology. It's genetics and biology.
Thank you, Ali, Sabrina, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.